Sydney's Royal National Park is home away from home for Professor David Keith.
I've spent a lot of time in this park doing research to better understand how biodiversity works and how to help it persist. There are 1,100 plant species that occur in Royal National Park, so it's an absolutely massive convergence of species represented there by plants in that example, but the plants also have an enormous web of dependent invertebrates that live with them.
These communities of species are at the heart of Professor Keith's work. He's considered one of Australia's foremost experts in plant ecology and vegetation dynamics. It's work that is fuelled by a genuine love for nature.
We're on a mission from God, and that mission is to conserve, nature, to give something back for the way that it supports us people. Public good is a really important contribution for scientists to make.
But conserving nature is becoming increasingly difficult. He lists many threats, including humans' excessive use of land and water resources, a growing number of invasive species, and the rising frequency and severity of natural disturbances such as floods and fire. The impacts are obvious, even here in a protected national park, where some long-lived plants are undergoing sustained declines associated with changing fire regimes and novel diseases.
We've been able to show that there's been quite substantial declines over the last few decades in species that normally live for hundreds of years. About a third of the plants that we tagged 30 years ago are no longer with us, and they're not being replaced at anything like the rate that they need to be by new seedlings to maintain a stable population.
But Professor Keith's research extends far beyond Sydney. He led an international team classifying the world's ecosystems into 110 functional types. He was also the driving force behind the so-called Red List of Ecosystems, a global scientific tool to assess the risk of ecosystem degradation and collapse.
There's no species that can exist without an ecosystem, a place to live in nature. What we're seeing, in the last few hundred years in particular, is a simplification of ecosystems where we're losing species that contribute important functions that keep other species afloat, because there are an incredible array of dependencies amongst different species.
But despite the mounting threats, Professor Keith remains hopeful. As a Fellow of the Australian Academy of Science, he wants to share his knowledge to ignite social change.
Utterly, it's about what people value and what they want to do. If they value nature, then they will look after it. I'm utterly convinced about that. So sharing, what we learn about this might actually help a few people appreciate, nature a little more because of, its incredible diversity and intricacy and complexity.